The Waterline, from The Mind Mapped, by the Mercer Journal. The Mind Unbuilt series ended with a person who had changed, not someone with updated views, someone who had become a different interpreter of the same signals. 6 articles established what that interpreter does. This series shows what it is. The terms are already familiar: receiver, first eye, second eye, gate, right channel, interpreter. What hasn't been shown yet is the architecture those terms point at, the structure they all live inside. That structure has a water line running through it. Article 1 is about that line. The standard picture. Most people carry some version of the same model of mind. There is a conscious, what you can access, think about deliberately, report on if asked, and there is an unconscious, what operates below, hidden, accessible only through special circumstances or extended effort. 2 regions, 2 systems, a boundary between them that things occasionally cross. This model isn't wrong about the distinction. The distinction is real and important. It's wrong about what kind of distinction it is. Conscious and subconscious are not 2 different places. They are one continuous structure with a threshold running through it. What sits above the threshold is currently accessible to deliberate attention. What sits below the threshold is currently operating without crossing into deliberate access. The difference between them is not location or system or kind, it is visibility. The waterline. Consider a glass vessel, tall, transparent, partially filled with water. The air above the waterline is open, lit, immediately accessible. The water below the waterline is present, active, deep. One vessel, one structure. A threshold running through the middle that divides not 2 different things, but 2 different conditions of the same thing. This is the image the series will build on. The conscious is what currently sits above the waterline, in the lit, open, accessible portion of the vessel. The subconscious is what currently sits below, submerged, present, continuous with what's above, but not currently crossing the threshold into deliberate access. The vessel is one structure. The waterline is not a wall between 2 systems. It is a threshold within one. The threshold moves. Here the model diverges from the standard iceberg. The iceberg has a fixed waterline. The conscious tip is always small, the unconscious bulk always large, the proportion roughly stable. That's a useful first approximation, but it misses something critical about how the threshold actually behaves. The waterline moves. Research on attention and conscious access suggests the threshold is highly dynamic. It fluctuates based on attention, stimulus strength, and top-down conditions. What crosses into conscious access in one moment may not cross in another, not because the content changed, but because the threshold shifted. Under high deliberate attention, focused, skilled, present, more crosses above the line. Under distraction, fatigue, or low stakes, less does. Think of the last time you drove a familiar route and arrived without remembering the journey. The driving happened. It was executed correctly, but very little of it crossed the waterline. The threshold had settled low. The familiar route didn't require much above-line processing, so most of it stayed below. Then think of the first time you drove that same route in an unfamiliar city, in rain at night. The threshold changed. The same kind of task demanded far more above-line engagement. More crossed, more was visible. Same structure, same person, different waterline. What sits below is active. The most important correction to the standard model is this: the subconscious isn't inactive. The conventional picture treats the unconscious as storage, things placed there residing quietly until retrieved. The vessel model suggests something different. Below the waterline, the structure continues operating. It is generating outputs continuously, running patterns, shaping what will surface when conditions change. The processing doesn't stop when it fails to cross the threshold. It continues below, influencing, accumulating, converting. The reader can locate this in ordinary experience. The solution that arrives while you're in the shower, not arrived at deliberately, but surfacing from below. The reaction that precedes its own explanation. The body already organized around something before the mind knows what it is. The catch that precedes the name for what was caught. And the emotional signal that arrives before any reasoning does. The feeling that something is wrong in a conversation before you can say what. the immediate unease around a person before a single reason has assembled, the sense that a situation has shifted before anything visible has changed. These are not intuitions arriving from nowhere. They are the submerged structure producing outputs that cross the waterline as felt signal, the blow already converting, already sending up what it found. These aren't mysterious. They are the submerged portion of one continuous structure producing outputs that then cross the waterline into conscious access. The blow was working the whole time. What changed was only that something finally crossed the threshold. What sits below the waterline is not waiting, it is working. Why this reframe matters. The two-system model produces a specific error in how people relate to their own interior. If conscious and subconscious are two different places, then the subconscious becomes territory that requires special access. Exotic methods, extraordinary circumstances, extended therapeutic work just to reach it all. It feels sealed off, remote, requiring a key that most people don't have. The waterline model produces a different intuition entirely. The subconscious is always already producing outputs. It is sending up things continuously. The question is never how to reach it. The question is whether we're positioned to notice what it's already sending across the threshold. This connects directly to everything the mind unbuilt established. The receiver operates at the waterline, converting what crossed into felt experience. The first eye reports what's above, the second eye catches the texture of what's crossing. The right channel sends material back down below the line. The waterline is where all of this happens, not a barrier between two systems, the threshold through which one continuous structure becomes visible to itself, partially, dynamically, always in motion. Close. One structure, one waterline, the threshold rising and falling under the conditions the system operates under. Everything that follows in this series builds on that image. The subconscious isn't below the waterline because it's different from the consciousness. It's below because that's where most of the structure currently sits, beneath the threshold of deliberate access, operating continuously, shaping everything that crosses up into view. The next article goes below the line, not into a different territory, into the larger portion of the same one. Next, what is actually down there and what it means that it has been building since before you had words for any of it. The Mercer Journal is an independent, reader-supported platform. You can back our work at ko-fi.com/WEMercer. That's ko-fi.com/WEMERCER. And thanks for listening.